those of you that were at camp last summer would have met Drew, because Drew was able to help us out, and he's going to be able to help us out again this year. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on Drew from a scout's perspective. Drew's 6'1", 190 pounds. I don't know if he's put on weight during COVID or has been able to keep it off.
I don't know.
Doesn't look very confident. He's currently 37 years old. Imagine that, being a pro athlete still at the age of 37. He was born in Charlottetown. Drew, you live in Stratford though, correct? When you're home?
Correct.
Yep. So he's born in Charlottetown at the QEH. I was born there with 7 of my siblings. He's a goaltender. He catches with his left hand. He was drafted by the Detroit Red Wings back in 2001 in the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Drew?
Correct.
Okay. But guys, listen to this. Drew, in his lifetime, has now played in over 10 hockey leagues, including the NHL, the American Hockey League, the Quebec Hockey League. He's played in Russia. He's played in Europe. And he's also currently playing in Japan right now. Think about that. He's currently playing hockey in Japan right now. And that's what he does for a living. He stops pucks. That's his job. Drew is a tremendous guy. He's a really good friend, and we've been really fortunate to work with him. But the coolest thing about Drew is his relationship with Christ. Like, not only is he passionate and does he love the game of hockey, he's an awesome dad, but the biggest thing in his life is his faith. And so that's what Drew's going to share with you guys tonight. So Drew, I am going to hand over the reins to you, and then we'll just go from there.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks joining us tonight. And I know my daughters are at the rink, but they're going to watch after. So hopefully you can tell your friends, and lots of people can watch after when they get home or during their March break sometime. Yeah. So 18 years pro is what I'm at right now. I'm playing in Japan. It's my 3rd season in Japan. It's been a really cool experience. It's been a great way to finish my career. I say finish my career because I have 4 games left, and I'm all done. So I have 2 weekends coming up, 2 games each weekend, and then I'm packing it in. So it's been a great, awesome, huge blessing to be able to play this long. I'm currently away from my 2 daughters and my wife, which is not ideal. It's been a tough year that way because of COVID and all the travel restrictions. But I get to go home in 2 weeks, and I got to quarantine in the basement for 2 weeks while my girls are all upstairs, which is going to be tough. Huge temptation to walk up those steps, but anyway, I'll try to do the best I can. So yeah, I played North America for 13 years, and then I've had 5 years of Germany, Slovakia, KHL, Japan. So kind of all over the place. Been able to see the world. It's been really cool. What I kind of want to talk to you about is, because I've played for so long, I've basically realized I've come to different conclusions in my career, learned lots of lessons. The biggest one is that I kind of want to talk about, who do you play for? What's your audience? Okay, we all have audiences, no matter how many people, what level you're at. People come watch our games, whether it be just your parents, whether it be thousands of people that come to each of your games. There's still people that come and watch you. I have a question for you. You don't have the answer. Just think about it for a second. I'm about to retire. I have 4 games left, 2 weeks of being a professional athlete, and I'm done. Should I approach my next job the same, even though there's not thousands of people watching me every game? Okay, just ponder that for a second. There's thousands of people that come to watch me play for 18 years. Different levels. There's way more thousands, some levels. My current level, there's not many thousands, that's for sure. But the game's growing here, but it's still pretty cool. There's been lots of times as a pro hockey player where there isn't anybody watching. Okay, you get thousands of people at your games, and that's all cool. You get nervous, and you get lots of applause when you do well. But a lot of the things that you do as a professional hockey player, nobody's watching. Okay, whether it be the gym, whether it be on the ice for your summer sessions or whatnot, after practice, staying on, going on early, the off season, your preparation, how you prepare on and off the ice, your diet. You know, none of your teammates are, you know, nobody's really watching you make those decisions at 9 o'clock at night, what you're going to eat or, you know, whatnot. So there's lots of times when you have lots of people watching you, but there's also lots of times when nobody's watching you. Okay. So ponder that a little bit. I'm taking the approach. I've learned some lessons throughout my career, but what has really has pushed me for the latter part of my career. Earlier in my career, I wish I had kind of had the same viewpoint, but with the help of Hockey Ministries and all these great chaplains that I've had through all my teams, I've been on so many teams and so many awesome chaplains. They've really helped me realize that I'm doing this. God has given me these gifts for a reason. Okay. He's given me a gift to play the game, to play professionally. And it's up to me to kind of do what I can with this gift and to do it. And then throughout my career, I really learned that it doesn't matter how many people are watching me, what level I play at. Early in my career, I thought I'd be a failure if I didn't make the NHL and make it as a regular, you know, household name. I thought that was my definition of success. I thought if I don't do that, I was a failure. And as my career went on, I kind of was always the number 3 goalie. So two goalies in the NHL, and then I was always the number 3 guy that was ready for an injury or anything that kind of happened. But throughout, like I mentioned, with all the HMI help, I really realized that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I make the NHL. I'm going to do my best to do so. But if I don't, I'm going to be okay. If I don't make the NHL, if I don't make millions of dollars, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to have an awesome journey. I'm going to learn a lot, and I can still be an example to my teammates. So whether or not I've done that well, we'll see. but that's always been my goal. Always been my goal to kind of be an example. But as I had a lot of, you know, kind of ups and downs, and I realized that my audience was one. My audience was the Lord. How am I I realized that I wanted to honor the Lord with my work ethic, with my approach to this job, with the skill that he has given me. Throughout those failures, I had 2 or 3 occasions where I couldn't get a job, and I thought my career was over. I'd be home. The seasons were already beginning, and I was home. And it was really a test to kind of just see how hard, you know, if I was just going to quit or not. And I really felt strongly that the Lord was pulling me that I'm not done yet. And in each occasion, thankfully, I still was able to keep going. Some of them were early in my career, so, you know, my career wouldn't have been very long. But I really, you know, like I mentioned, with the help of HMI, but I really felt the Lord just pulling me to have an audience of one. Few times I thought I was done, but I just continued to work. And that means in the gym, when I'm working in the gym with nobody in the summer, you know, am I going to kind of, not give it my all? And I've always felt that I had a lot more to do than just work hard when my teammates were watching or my coach was watching. So my other question for you, you don't have the answer, but should you still work as hard as you possibly can when your coach has his back turned, when no one is watching? Okay, it's along the same line, but when you're having a really tough practice, you're just not feeling it. Coach is down at the other end, whether you're a goalie or a player, you know, what are you going to do? Are you going to still do that rep of that drill as hard as you possibly can? Okay. When no one's watching, when you're out on the ice all by yourself. Okay. So I would encourage you that you owe it to the Lord to do everything that you can with this gift that he's given you. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that everyone's going to play in the NHL or be a professional hockey player. And this also can relate to it whenever some of the kids are going to be starting to work summer jobs and whatnot. Anything that you do it to honor the Lord. And how do you honor the Lord? You do it by your work ethic and the way that you are as a human, as far as how you treat everybody, your humility, treat every human that comes along, how you're going to treat them. Are you going to treat them like the Lord would treat them? Or are you going to treat them how the world sometimes treats them? Okay. So I have three things that I'd just like you to all take home to kind of think about. 3 points, 3 main points. Number 1 is honor God in everything you do. Okay. So I picked this one from the Message, but Colossians 3:22-25. Servants, do what you're told by earthly masters. Don't just do the minimum that will get you by. Do your best, work from the heart for your real master, for God. Confident that you'll get paid in full when you come into your inheritance. Keep in mind always that the ultimate master you're serving is Christ. Your servant who does shoddy work will be held responsible. Being a follower of Jesus doesn't cover up bad work. Okay, so the big thing that sticks out to me there is the heart. Do your best, work from the heart. So that's the biggest thing as a Christian, is we have new hearts when we become Christians. Our new hearts lead us to lots of new ways of life, how we want to treat others and everything. But in this case, I'm going to work from the heart. When nobody's watching, when my teammates aren't watching, I still want to be an example to my teammates. I still want everybody to remember that. I'm always wanting to be an example of the Lord to my teammates, but I also want to be able to do it when nobody's watching. Okay. Number 2, all work is God's calling for you. So like I mentioned, if you're working at McDonald's, if you're working at anywhere, any job is God's calling for you at that time. That doesn't mean, your jobs are going to change as you go from job to job as you get older. I'm going to have a new job soon. Am I going to approach it the same as I have being a professional hockey player? You're darn right I will. I'm going to treat it the exact same way. I'm going to show up to work every day and do the best that I can. And I'm going to do it in a way that I hope that God will be pleased with. Number 3, God has a plan for you. So when that comes to your job, your hockey, doesn't matter. God has a plan for you and what he's going to do. If you're a child of the Lord, he has a plan for you. You might not think it. When I was on my 9th life in my hockey career, I thought maybe it was time, but I've still been able to keep going, and I'm at year 18. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. So when you're there struggling to find that motivation, when you're there, when you just had something not go right in your hockey career or your working career, know that God has a plan for you, that he's changed your heart, and that you have an audience of the Lord watching you in everything that you do. And I say that in an encouraging manner so that you can always do it in a way that is pleasing to the Lord. So I hope that's a good message for you all. I want to keep it simple, but that's, throughout my career, it's been something that's really kind of stuck to me. And especially the last few years when I've been kind of in all these different countries and stuff, it's, I don't always, in Japan, I'm the only I have one other English guy. So, I don't always get to interact like I usually do, on all my other teams. I have a whole team that I can talk to on a regular basis. Here, it's tough. I have one other guy that talks English, and, a couple of Japanese guys do a little bit, but we have an interpreter, so I can still have some kind of conversations through my interpreter. But, you know, it gets tough. So how I have more than an audience of just these Japanese guys. And that's kind of how I view it. But it's been, at the same point, I've hoped that I've been an example to them of the Lord, because, you know, the Lord isn't it's not in everybody's teachings in their homes here in Japan. But so I hope that I have been an example to them to some regard. So that's all I got.
Drew, that is awesome, man. Seriously, thank you so much for sharing. And what I'd love to do now is really just sort of open the floor with some questions. I know I got a question for you, but I will hold off and I'll ask it first. But any of the campers, do you guys have any questions for Drew? Ms. Gass, you are a goaltender. So I'm going to ask you a question, and then you can ask this question to Drew, okay? Ms. Gass, what is it like when you do not play for your team and you have to sit on the bench? How does that make you feel?
Not that great, because they always have to find someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's not always easy, is it? When sometimes you feel left out, or maybe your team is relying on other goalie, because that's the difference of being a goaltender versus being a forward and a defenseman, is goalies have to take turns. Now, let's ask that question then to Drew. Is like, Drew, you said for yourself, a lot of times you weren't the number one goalie, you weren't the number two goalie, and you weren't, ended up being the number three goalie that would sit up top, not even on the bench. What would you say was the biggest thing you learned about that at that time at your age, to continue to want to play, as a goaltender, because that would have had to be very challenging sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the stuff that I try to teach them at my goalie school, is that a lot of them start as the only goalie and novice, or as you get older, sometimes you're the only goalie. That's a lot of fun because you just don't have to think about anything else. You just go and stop the. But you got to be adaptable as a goalie, and that means also that's not just your goaltending. That's your as a person, as a teammate. You got to be able to adapt, and it teaches you that you have to be, usually 50% of the time you're not playing. So that's a lot of the time. So you had to be a good teammate, and that can be easier said than done sometimes. Some of us have that bone in us that want to be a little bit selfish, and and as a goalie you want to play and you want the action. That's a good attitude to have, but at the same time you need to be selfless in the regard of a good teammate and genuinely wanting success for your team when you're not playing as well.
That's right. Ms. Gass, do you have any more questions for him, or any advice that you want to get from Drew? You're good? You'll wait until camp? Yeah, it's a good idea. Campbell, how about yourself? Campbell, do you have any questions for Drew on anything that he shared?
No, not really at the moment.
But would you want to say hi? We miss you.
Hey, how's the McFlurry? Can you answer me that question?
It is on point. Let me tell you, Cradbury McFlurry is going down well after a big win tonight.
Well deserved.
God bless.
That's awesome. Well, Browns, it's awesome to see you guys. Now let's move to the Lowther boys. Do you guys have any questions for Drew? And between the two of you, one of you needs to come up with one.
I guess I have one that I can ask. Drew, I know you said there's only one other guy who speaks English. So during your playing hockey, how do you communicate with them?
So that's a good question. We have an interpreter. So anybody not a child, you might remember the movie what was it? Mr. Baseball. If you haven't, then check it out, because it's basically my life over here in Japan. It's me and another guy, and we have an interpreter. So we have a Japanese guy he actually went to college in the US, so he speaks perfect English. So he helps us with he's kind of there on call for us anytime I'm out at the mall and I'm like, we're having an awkward conversation with somebody and I have no idea what they're saying. So he's really helpful. He's on the bench. So my other guy is a centerman. So he's more there for him because I don't really need him throughout a game. And then in the dressing room, it's pretty funny when I think about it. It's me and my other buddy, Tyler. We're at the back of the room and we're sitting beside each other. And in the middle of us is our interpreter. And he's just there, like kind of whispering everything that the coach is saying at the front of the room. So I don't know how the coach concentrates because to me, it's really distracting, but he's talking while the coach is talking. And it's actually a pretty hard skill, I've been told, to translate that quickly because it's such two different languages.
That's cool. Any more questions, other boys?
No.
No, I'm good.
You're pretty good. Well, that's actually a great question. I don't know if you guys know this. From my job and my perspective, we interview kids from all over the world. And, you know, a lot of them are 17, turning 18. And kids from Russia and Europe, they don't know English. And when we interview them, you know, it's a challenge. And it's something to keep in mind that, you know, it's one thing to play at home. It's another thing when you travel and you play in another country and you deal not only with like the cultural changes, but also with the language barriers. You know, it just adds to that. So Drew, that's really cool. Before we get to any of the adults, if they have any questions, Mark, does Max have a question for Drew? I know you guys are there in the background. If you want to mute yourself, Max, if you had a question. No?
Hi, guys. No, he's good. He's here.
Max, have you figured goalies out? Do you know how to score on them?
Somewhat.
Somewhat, because this could be a good time to ask a question, to ask where you should shoot the puck.
Where do you score on them usually?
Around where my stick is, not where my body is. So I put my body in front of their body, nice. And then I shoot the puck around their body with using my stick as my eyes.
Nice.
That's quite an answer. That's impressive.
That's awesome, Max. Thank you so much. And then I know we have Pat's iPhone. I'm not sure who's there, but if you guys want to ask a question, go right ahead before we jump to Dwight. We're good? Okay. Max, it's awesome seeing you, by the way. Okay, for any of our adults, from Mrs. Brown to Dwight to the Derriches, do you guys have any questions for Drew before we close off here for the night?
I just don't want Drew to worry about retirement because my new job of golfing is great.
I don't know. That's my job. Not very good at that.
So, well, that's awesome. Well, what we can do is if no one has any more questions or comments, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. Just, Drew, you went over it during COVID, which, I mean, being away from the family and that adds an element to things anyway, but being away, did you have to work harder at sort of determining whether to go and getting guidance on that through prayer and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I signed early. You know, COVID was we were right in the heart of the lockdown basically when I signed. So a long time ago, after the season. And so we really didn't think this was still going to be going on throughout the year. We thought the girls would be able to come over. Usually last year they came over twice for long stretches. So it was a really good setup. We weren't away from each other for too long and I was able to go home. This year, yeah, so it's been frustrating on that regard. I was able to convince them to go home for Christmas. So our season was delayed. So I wasn't able to actually come into the country until like mid-October. So that was kind of great in that regard, because usually I'm gone in August. That's why I wasn't able to do the first couple of camps in PEI. But yeah, so it was great that it was delayed. But then they said, okay, we got the clearance from the government for, people on working visas to come. So we came, but we knew that it was going to be probable that the girls weren't going to be able to come. So, but I thought I'd be able to travel back and forth once or twice. I had a couple flights in my contract. And anyway, long story short, I've done a lot of quarantining, I think on 3 different occasions, and it's been a lot of downtime this year, and our schedule's been disrupted a couple times. Like we haven't played in a month, so we just been kind of practicing and training for a month and then we have these final 4 games, these final 2 weekends, and that's it. So it's been a frustrating year in that regard, kind of just all over the place, and yeah, kind of all over the place. But anyway, it's almost over.
Well, that's cool, Drew. I think what we'll do, guys, is we'll close on this is, I like to take notes when people speak. And, a few things that I took away from your message, Drew, that I think it's important for the campers that you guys listen to this, and the adults, is that, having a relationship with Jesus is a lot like Drew's story, and on how he became and has played as a goaltender, is that, the biggest thing is that it's a journey, and it's not always going to be easy. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and you're going to have days where you love, being a Christian, like Drew loves being a goalie, but then there will be days where maybe you get made fun of for believing in Jesus, or when you pray and you want God to like give you something right away, but he answers your prayer in a way that maybe you don't like it, or maybe you have hurt in your family. Like, we all experience that, and that's just like Drew's story of where he had highs and he had lows and he's had to travel far. But the cool thing is God was with him through it all, from the beginning to right now, and where he continues to go. But this is the one difference, though, in Drew's story that you guys actually should be really ecstatic about, that I'm excited about, is that, how Drew said sometimes he was like the number 3 goalie, or sometimes the number 2 goalie, and sometimes the number 1 goalie. The cool thing is to God, you guys are always number 1. You're never number 2, and you're never number 3. But like, you guys are always number 1 in God's life, and he doesn't see you any different than that. It's just like anything else. Like, when you're a backup goalie, sometimes you feel down, or guys, you're going into provincials and you're ramped up, but then maybe you get nervous, and who knows how your game's going to be played, and maybe your coach gets after you. But this is the awesome thing about when you have a relationship with Jesus, like, you're always number 1 to him. You're never going to be number 2, and you're never going to be number 3. And that's the only difference. So just really want to encourage you guys with that. So let's do this. We'll close out in prayer. And then Sarah, as she always does, will let us know when the next chapel is going to take place. Be sure to keep your friends posted, guys, and your friends' parents on when this stuff happens, because this is just stuff, and it's a way for us to be able to stay connected as a community. And I know that COVID has had an impact on all of our lives, but this is a way that we can just at least get to see each other and stay connected. And we are so excited to see all you guys in August. It's going to be so much fun. So, Miss Brown, I know you guys joined a little bit late, but we're going to be sending out camp details here within the next few weeks. We're just finalizing, some of the finer tuned details, but we have dates down, and we're really excited to go ahead with the camp this summer. So make sure you guys pay close attention to your emails. So let's do this. Drew, do you want to close this out in prayer? And then we'll hang up for the night, and we'll let you get going in the morning, because it's almost 8 o'clock in the morning there, and you got to get to practice.
Time to work.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Dear Lord, we thank you for this time. We thank you for being in our lives, giving us the chance to be together. We thank you for this camp. It's done extraordinary things in a short amount of time, and we thank you that it keeps growing. And despite of this difficult time, that you give us the opportunity to continue this camp and all the preparations. I want to thank you, Lord, for HMI in my life, in my family's life. I don't know where we'd be without the amazing people in HMI that have really transformed Karen and I and my daughter's lives throughout this crazy journey we've been on. We thank you for all these kids that are online watching with us and that will watch after. We pray that you're with them along their journey, and that you remind them that you're the audience, that you're their audience on a daily basis, and that you love them, and that they're number 1 to you. So in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.